Good afternoon, everybody. It's your boy, Pigskin Pete. Happy Monday to everybody. Back at you this fine Monday morning with another version of the College Football Playoff Committee ranking projections. If you've been paying attention to the videos I've been doing for the past couple of weeks, what I've been doing is projecting what the very first rankings for the College Football Playoff Committee will be. That happens tomorrow on Tuesday. I'll be live right here on YouTube during that rankings reveal, whatever you want to call it, the first rankings show. Anyway, what I've been doing is predicting week to week as if they were going to do the rankings that week for the past 2 weeks. Now, a lot of these teams have played each other. Some of these teams have lost, so they're going to move around. And that's what I've been doing. Being that the first one's coming out tomorrow night, I'm going to go ahead and give you my final projection of where I think they'll be ranked for this first week. By popular demand and request, I will also, after I get done doing that, give you my personal opinion of where these teams should be ranked, which is completely different than where the AP would have them ranked. It's completely different than where I think the committee's going to have them ranked. Of course, my opinion means nothing. Everybody's got their own opinion, and they would have all these teams ranked in different orders. So we'll see how many people I can piss off with my personal feelings about where these teams should be ranked. Anyway, we'll just do it just to have fun. All right, so let's start. Let's go ahead and start. What I'm going to do first is just my projection of what they're going to do tomorrow night. And I'll do this each week because they're going to do these, for the rest of the season. They're going to do each week a new ranking, the same way the AP does a new ranking every week, right? So each week I'll give you my projection of what they're going to have these teams ranked. Obviously, the first one out of all of them is the most difficult to project what they're going to do because there's nothing to go off. I mean, after we have the first one, that next week, at least I'll know where they had them ranked the week before, and you can shuffle them around. Much easier to do it then than it is for this first one. But we'll see how close I can get. You guys want to play along, make up your projection of what you think they'll do, and we'll compare at the end, see who's closer or whatever, if you want to do that. Otherwise, don't tell me how stupid my projections are unless you want to give me yours as well. It's only fair. All right, let's start here with numbers 10, 9, and 8 for tomorrow night. All right, so I think they're going to have Oklahoma at 10 as a one-loss Big 12 team. The reason I have Baylor ahead of them, Baylor I didn't even have in my top 10 last week, but Baylor wins another game. Baylor's undefeated. I realize people are going to tell me Baylor has played a much weaker schedule so far than Oklahoma. Maybe so. They're both pretty weak, but here's the difference. Baylor hasn't lost a game. Oklahoma has. That's just all there is to it. So I think that the committee's going to say Baylor hasn't lost a game. They're in the same league. They have a similar strength of schedule. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar. And one has lost a game, one hasn't. So I think they'll have Baylor at number 9. Utah stays at number 8. I think that they'll be at number 8 in the committee's mind. Tomorrow night, they're a one-loss team. They beat who did they beat? Washington this week. And so I think Utah will stay at number 8 as a one-loss Pac-12 team. Only loss being to Southern Cal. Let's see. Okay, we'll move on to 7, 6, and 5. You see Georgia at 7, which is, I think I had them there last week. Maybe not. I think they might have been at 8. Anyway, they beat Florida, so I think they stay at 7. You're going to say to me, no, Pete, the AP has them higher than that. Everyone's poll I'm looking at has them higher than that. Why would they be behind Oregon? I have Oregon at 6 and Penn State at 5, as you can see. So Oregon and Georgia both have a loss. Georgia's loss is to an unranked South Carolina at home. Oregon's loss is a last-minute miracle loss on a neutral field to Auburn. The argument you can make here is that Georgia has a better win, okay? Because Georgia has a top 10 win against Florida. Now, it's arguable whether Florida was really worthy of being a top 10 in the team in the first place, but they were, so whatever you want to say. I would say just the eye test would tell me that the committee's going to rank Oregon ahead of Georgia. That's all. I mean, I just think that, not that Georgia's looked bad, but they haven't looked great. Even in some of these wins that they've had, they've eked by. They eked by Notre Dame. They eked by Florida. Obviously, lost to South Carolina. So anyway, now Oregon's had some close wins too, but they've also been some very just. If you want to go off of just what happened last week, I know Southern Cal's not great, but Oregon blew Southern Cal off the field this past weekend. And so I think that was a good win for them. All right, so I think they'll have Georgia at 7, Oregon at 6. Penn State at 5. They pretty much held steady at 5 throughout these videos that I've been doing. I think that's where they're going to come in with the committee as well, and I'll explain more about that in a second. We'll just go ahead and do 4, 3, 2, and 1, which I believe are the exact same as what I had them the past couple of weeks. So Clemson at 4, Bama at 3, Ohio State at 2, and LSU at 1. I think that LSU is going to come in at 1. There's an argument to be made whether Ohio State should be ranked number 1. Doesn't matter what people's argument is. I just think that LSU is going to come in at 1 because of the way that the committee says that they do things is they don't just look at your record. They also look at who you played and all that. Strength of record, not strength of schedule. Strength of schedule is something that is projected ahead. They don't project ahead, they claim. So then they're not going to go ahead and credit Alabama for playing LSU next week. They'll credit them after they play LSU, if that makes sense. They're going to pretend as if all they're going to look at is what has happened so far this year, so far, not looking ahead. So in that case, I think that's the reason they'll have LSU at 1, Ohio State at 2, Alabama at 3, Clemson at 4. Yeah, so that's it. So we'll see. We'll see how close I get. Of course, I don't think I'm going to get all of them right, but I don't think it only takes one to get one wrong in this top 10 to throw everything off, because then you have a bunch of different spots. Anyway, we'll see how close it is. You guys can join me tomorrow night live here on YouTube for that. We'll have a good time with it, and you guys can laugh at me about how wrong I was, how stupid I am, or whatever. All right, now let's get into the real fun part. Whoever, you know what, I don't know who the person was that suggested for me to do this. There's a couple of them. Thank you for the suggestion, okay, because it's going to end up being good, pissing a lot of people off, like I said. And there's nothing I enjoy doing more than getting people all pissed off and calling me a homer. All right, so I'm just going to put them all up at once, and then I'll explain, okay? I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I have no time for that, and neither do you. All right, so the Pigskin Pete rankings. If Pigskin Pete were the only person on the committee, and Pigskin Pete was hired by the NCAA to do these rankings tomorrow night live on TV, this is what Pigskin Pete would have as his top 10. Hold on to your butts, folks. All right, I'd have Minnesota at number 10. Why? Minnesota's undefeated. I don't care if they haven't played anybody. I give credit to teams for being undefeated, period. Number 9, I'd have Baylor. Again, undefeated. I don't care who they played. Undefeated, period. I would have Georgia at 8. I think Georgia is definitely a top 10 team. I think that Georgia is definitely better than Baylor and Minnesota, even though they have a loss. So I'd have them one ahead of them. I'd have Utah at 7. Why? That's a good question. You could flip-flop Georgia and Utah, but I thought it would be fun to really piss off some Georgia fans and put Utah ahead of them. How about that? 6, Oregon. I think, and have been saying that I think that Oregon is one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the country since before they played their first game. They were my dark horse pick to make the playoffs out of the Pac-12. And believe me, if they go 12-1 and win the Pac-12, I believe they'll make it into the playoffs. I really do, even with that loss to Auburn. Frankly, the Pac-12 is better this year than they had been in several years prior to this. And so I think that you can look at their Pac-12 schedule and say that it's worthy, if you go undefeated in the Pac-12, because their only loss will be to Auburn. If you go undefeated in the Pac-12 and win the Pac-12 championship with one loss, I think you're worthy to take a shot in the playoffs. We'll see if I'm right or not. All right, I have Penn State at number 5. And I'll get to that in a minute as well. Penn State's at 5 in everybody's rankings, including mine, including the committees, including, I think maybe the AP has them there too. There's some people that think that Penn State can move up to 3 in these first rankings, and there's a case to be made for that, and I'll get to that in a second. Why would you have Alabama at number 4, Pigskin Pete? What are you doing? You just hate Alabama, don't you? You're just trying to piss off Alabama fans. No. Look, if Pigskin Pete's going to go by the same rules as the committee, right? People, all they talk about is how Clemson hasn't played nobody. Clemson hasn't played nobody. Clemson hasn't played nobody. Well, to this point, Clemson has a stronger strength of record than Alabama does. Just look it up. So Clemson has played, they played basically the same schedule as Alabama. The difference is, out of conference, Clemson played A&M. Out of conference, Bama played Duke. And let's be honest, that's really Alabama's best win is against Duke. Yes, was it a dominant win? It sure was. But if all things are equal, and you look at their strength of record to this point, now this is going to take care of itself. So everybody stop crying about why I have Alabama at number 4 and Clemson at 2, or even LSU at 3. I'm sure you're crying about that too. It's all going to take care of itself. Why? Because Alabama and LSU are going to play each other this weekend, and the winner of that game, no matter who it is going to hop up ahead of Clemson, even in my poll. So just slow down, all right? This is just this week. This is after 9 games, or 8 games for those guys. All right. Why would I have LSU ranked outside of Clemson or below Clemson, however you want to look at it? Well, here's the reason why. I think Ohio State, these teams are all undefeated, right? Penn State, Alabama, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State. Clemson and Ohio State, in my mind, are the 2 most complete teams in America. Why? I don't care if they played Wofford 18 times in a row. The fact of the matter is, Clemson is the only team in the country to this point that has 7 wins against Power 5 teams. No other team has it. None of them. So stop talking about how they play cupcakes when you have more cupcakes on your schedule so far than Clemson does. Also, Ohio State and Clemson, the 2 only teams in this top 10 that are both in the top 5 in total defense and top 5 in total offense. The only 2. Period. LSU, amazing, amazing offense. Could LSU outscore Clemson or Ohio State or Alabama? Sure they can. But their defense is not even a top 10 defense. Alabama, same difference. I'm putting them and LSU in the same boat. Now, I think Alabama's defense is better than LSU's is. Don't get me wrong. But it's not the Alabama's defense that we're used to seeing under Nick Saban. Certainly not a top 5 defense. Even they'll tell you that. So that's why I have it the way. And why would I have, if I'm using that logic, why would I have Ohio State ahead of Clemson? It's simple. 2 top 5 offenses, 2 top 10 defenses. Ohio State's schedule has been more impressive so far. And just because they played Wisconsin, that's the only reason, because outside of Wisconsin, everybody else that they beat is a bunch of bad teams. So I'm giving them credit for Wisconsin. That's better than anybody Clemson's played so far. So that's why I'd have Ohio State ahead of Clemson. Again, this is going to take care of itself. You got Penn State playing Ohio State still. You've got Alabama playing LSU still. So those teams would leapfrog Clemson most likely. Certainly Alabama or LSU would. But to this point, no. So there's Pete's rankings. Everybody go cry about it. If you disagree with me, I don't really give a shit. You want to know why? Because it's not your rankings. It's mine. I'm sure your rankings, if I were to look at them, would be stupid too. All right. So, guys, I'll see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. All that stuff, yada, yada, yada. Thanks for watching. Leave some comments. Let me know where you'd have them or where you think they're going to be. And I will see you guys tomorrow night. I think the rankings come on, the show comes on at 9 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, Eastern time. So I'll probably go live on YouTube maybe 15 or 20 minutes before that happens. So maybe around 8:30, 8:45, somewhere in that range. See you then. Have a great day. Pigskin Pete, checking out.